Hello and welcome to Talk Story to Me. I'm so happy that you can join me today, and we're going to be talking about The Night Manager. Now, this is not a movie. This will actually be the first miniseries that I have reviewed, and I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to do it for every single episode or whether I'll just do one at the end. But I do know that, reviews can be helpful, and, if you've got TV and you want to join along, this so far has been set up as a really good series, and I've really enjoyed it. But first things first, let's hit the biases. I'm not going to do this for every episode if I do it, because we don't need to hear that every time. And really the only bias that I have on this that really needs to be disclosed is the fact I really love spy stories. And I have for almost as long as I can remember. I even wanted to be a spy when I was a kid. It was in between becoming a best-selling author and conquering the world. And then I realized there were some ethical issues with that, and I matured past it. But then that's another story that doesn't need to be told here. Anyway, I matured, but I still kept that love of spy stories. And this was actually a series I wasn't sure that I wanted to see. I was debating it. It looked like it was interesting, but there was a part of me that I thought I knew where it was going to go, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to take that particular journey. I had to think about it. But as it turned out, we actually just got TV, and this is my first time in my life having TV. I've had, Netflix for a while, but never TV. Didn't even have it when I was a kid. So this is really exciting. And if you want just the short of it, I would definitely recommend watching this if you enjoy spy stories, if you enjoy adventures, or just well-acted stories. Because so far, it's off to a very strong start, in my opinion. The story is based off of the novel, The Night Manager, and I don't know how well it represents that because I didn't read it. Maybe one day it looks like it's an interesting story, and it follows the path of Jonathan Pine. He's a luxury hotel manager, and he is the night manager, of course, as the title suggests. And he ends up infiltrating an arms dealer, Richard Roper. He is termed the worst man in the world. And, I really liked this start. And what I liked about it was it took its time. Now, please don't mistake me. I'm not saying it was boring. It was not boring at all. But it didn't worry about just dropping you in the middle of the action or rushing through to get to Jonathan Pine's infiltration there. They spent the whole first episode setting up Jonathan Pine's character. And for the most part, it was really, really well done. Right off the bat, they give you a reason to care about his character, to connect with him, and to root for him, and to hope that he makes it and that he succeeds. Egypt is there's this conflict going on, and it's not a good situation and very dangerous. He goes into the hotel early to help out, which was a really nice touch. And then we see him continuing to work with the guests and try to help them. And all the way through, actually, even though obviously he's got his demons, there are issues, there are problems, and I'm sure that there are going to be more things that come out in this story, it's still set up that from his actions at this point, he is a kind individual and somewhat of a caretaker, interested in helping people. And I thought that was nice. It was making me think back to, I'm an insomniac, and when I do sleep, I'm also a sleepwalker. So I've met a lot of night managers when I have stayed in hotels. Those are some interesting stories, but another time. Anyway, I thought, and so far the one thing I've noticed with most of them is that they tend to be very, very, very kind, at least to a certain degree. They're attentive to people's needs, even eager to make things as good as possible. People. That's the good way to put it. So, and that was reflected here. And we see Jonathan Pine working to do the best he can to fix situations. And then he ends up getting information that he can't sit on. And, we see he has a conscience. We see where the lines are, and that he is willing to take action, and then there's consequences for those actions. And I really like that. In fact, I didn't even realize how much I wanted a story with a really good person as the protagonist. Lately, I've been going through this streak of stories, not intentionally, but in stories and in movies where the protagonist is not really a good person, you know. And it's not that that's bad, but I just realized this was refreshing. In fact, I actually thought when I saw the previews, because I haven't read the novel, I thought from the previews that Jonathan Pine was going to be sort of this playboy who, you know, is into drugs, into money, and fairly unethical, but not that bad. Not as bad as Richard Roper. Because, let's face it, in stories, a character can get away with murder so long as he is charismatic and handsome. I think, yeah, handsome, charismatic, and money. If you have those three things, anything goes. And I was pleasantly surprised that actually Jonathan Pine isn't that character. Now, I know, I understand the irony. Obviously, they're going to be turning him into a character who can infiltrate Richard Roper's organization, which means they're going to turn him pretty awful. They've got to make him really, really bad. And I think that one of the themes that's being set up here, I'm almost positive about this, it's going to be the question of how far can you go in trying to destroy evil before you become evil? What is allowed? What is right? What can you do? And can you come back? And if you can't come back, is it still worth it just to stop it? What are the acceptable casualties in this? So I'm looking forward to that. I think those are good questions to ask, and very interesting questions too, because the passion to try to stop evil and to stop it at all costs can sometimes lead people to becoming what they most hate. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to go that way with Jonathan Pine's character. Maybe. I think that they're probably going to play with it because there's the question of identity, there's the question of what will his conscience allow, and there was a very interesting conversation where Burr, the agent who he gets in touch with, where she's asking him why he's doing it, and he reveals a lot about himself, and it's actually a fairly quick scene as I'm thinking back on it, and I'm curious to see whether his ability to focus on that end goal is going to perhaps, will it make the task coming ahead more palatable, or will there be more of a struggle? Because there's almost the element of the end justifies the means if it's a really, really good one. And that's going to put him in tension with Richard Roper. And I'm really curious to see that. That is a good series of questions, though most of us don't face it on that level. But hey, you know what's great about stories? They can take the little issues that we face and they can make them really, really big and then analyze them even more. So, let's see. Not entirely sure how spoilers go, so I don't know if you've seen this show or not, and I don't know that there's any, but I'm going to try to avoid any direct spoilers, and I'll find out before the next one, if I do another one, what's allowed. As far as the storyline goes, very straightforward. We've already been introduced to the main characters, Jonathan Pine and then Richard Roper, and a number of sub-characters. Tom Hollander plays he's sort of an intelligent thug. He's one of Richard Roper's associates. It seems almost like his right-hand man. Looks like he's going to be set up to be a primary antagonist to Tom Hiddleston's Jonathan Pine, just in vying for Richard Roper's favor, and I think he's going to be giving him some problems. So, curious to see how that goes. I think that it sounds like they've got it set up for some interesting conflict, though. So this is completely unrelated, but when we were watching it, and I was sitting there, and Tom Hollander comes in, and I'm watching him. I didn't recognize him initially, and I leaned over to my husband, and this is why I like doing this at home, because we can talk. And I said, "Who is he? I know we've seen him before." And James leans over and he says, "What excellent boiled potatoes!" And I burst out laughing. It's completely the wrong point to burst out laughing in the series, but oh well. He's doing a very good job as being set up as this antagonist, even though Richard Roper obviously is the big bad. But you've got to have that lieutenant, and to have the varying degrees of threats. And Hugh Laurie as Richard Roper, he's doing a great job so far. I I felt more conflicted because when I was growing up, the one series that we watched over and over, because we didn't have TV, so we watched, whatever was on video, watched Jeeves and Wooster. And we watched that series so many times that we wore the videos out. And Hugh Laurie played Bertie Wooster in that. And that's a completely different character from Richard Roper. And for the most part, I really like watching actors take on different roles and disappear into these different characters. And what I try to do when I watch that is see, can I forget who they played before and just see that character? And it's a little trickier when it's an actor from a series that I watched a lot when I was a kid, mainly because when I was a kid, I watched these things over and over and over. It just kind of ingrained. I'm not entirely sure why. It just is. But you know what? I didn't have any problem buying Hugh Laurie as Richard Roper. He sold it perfectly. He was not any of the other characters. He wasn't House. He wasn't Bertie Wooster. And I really appreciated that. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with his character. I also suspect that there's going to be a temptation subplot because right now what I see with Richard Roper's character is he is an opportunist and he is an individual who is making the most of situations as he finds them. He is not a nice man, but I suspect that he has reasons for thinking that what he's doing is all right, and I look forward to seeing those being discussed and analyzed. So, excellent performance there. Yeah, when James and I were talking about it, said it's a little bit strange because we had just watched Jeeves and Wooster, so thinking back on it, I was like, wow, it's like a really, really sad sequel to Jeeves and Wooster or House. But anyway, really good work. I think everyone involved did a good job. Let's see. Oh, yes, Tom Hiddleston is Jonathan Pine. He's doing a great job, and again, don't have any problem seeing him as the character that he's portraying. And that's one of the things I really enjoy in his acting is even though he plays a variety of characters, he just disappears into it and it works. And I think that's a hard talent to master, and it makes the story even more interesting. So I am really glad. There's someone in the house. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, someone was in the house, but everything's okay. It's been dealt with. And I've sort of lost my train of thought with the review, but I think I said most everything that I wanted to say, and of course I can always do another one with additional comments. But essentially, to wrap up, it was a good first episode. I like the characters. I like the setup for this plot. I loved the locations and these hotels in Cairo and Zurich. I don't know that they were actually at those locations, but they looked gorgeous. And I thought they were really an interesting addition to the story. Can't wait to see where they take it, what questions they engage with, and how the characters themselves get developed. So, in the meantime, have you gotten to see this show, and what did you think of it? Do you enjoy it? How does it compare to the other spy shows that you've seen? I like the fact that this seems to have its own identity, and I'm looking forward to seeing that develop, and I'm curious about your thoughts too. So, have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.